Keith Pompey is in L.A. He's with the Sixers as they continue this road trip, a little L.A. flow, as Keith would say. And road trip it is, 4-gamer here. How important is this trip? Because, I don't know, Keith, man, they got to figure out a way to steal one, maybe. I guess you looked out here earlier, Sacramento, Golden State, but all of a sudden you're wondering where they're going to sneak one in with 3 starters out tonight. Who fills in tonight? What's, in your opinion, I don't think the lineup would be out your time yet, but any idea of who I guess Milton would be one. Who might be the other 2?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, because, right now, the Sixers didn't have shoot around today, and so we'll find out before the game who the the other starters are. But if you want to base it off of typically who started in the second half of the last game, it was Shake Milton, Matisse Thybulle, Mike Scott, Tobias Harris, and Al Horford. I wouldn't be surprised if they go that way, just because and a guy like Glenn Robinson III, he's been struggling when he's been out there, and he's like 0 for 10 on threes. Whereas, you look at it and you want Matisse, who's a pretty good defender, and he played well against LeBron last game. So, you may have Matisse out there, and I think, you also need an additional shooter, and you may go Mike Scott. And then as far as the bench, you'll have like Kyle O'Quinn as a post player. You'll have Norvell Pell playing. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brett Brown threw that lineup out there.
Yeah, Keith, I want to get your take. Obviously Milton's a conversation here. And what do you see his role kind of, what's the potential for his role? Because obviously with Simmons out, he's going to have this role. And we don't know when Simmons is coming back, if at all. But what kind of NBA player do we joked the other day, is this Shake Sanity? Is this Jeremy Lin here for a couple of games just going off? Or is this a guy who's got legit NBA talent who can find a role on a winning team?
I think he's a legit NBA player. I think the thing is, when you sit back and you look at some of the things he did in high school, he was at SMU. He was projected to be a first-round pick, and then he was injured. And, I feel like it was one of those things where is he like a franchise-type player? No, but I think he's a legitimate guy. For the Sixers, I feel like he can become that 5th starter once everyone is healthy. Like if Ben Simmons comes back, Josh Richardson comes back, I think that a guy like Shake Milton can be that 5th starter. Like they're going to list him as like a wing player. They're going to list Ben Simmons as the point guard. But we're all going to know that Ben Simmons is really going to be the point forward and Shake Milton's going to be the point guard. And a reason why I think he works out well is because you can have Ben, running things from the high post, but Shake will be a guy in the perimeter who can knock down shots. Like Shake will bring the ball up. His first pass is always through Ben. The offense then runs through Ben, and Shake will be around, and he'll be able to get some shots. So I look at him, if everyone comes back healthy, that Shake Milton could thrive in that 5th starter role.
The rotation is tricky, I feel like, as it always is, Keith, with the Philadelphia 76ers. But you mentioned Matisse Thybulle and him potentially starting tonight. We don't know that for sure yet. But look at his minutes over the past few games. 16. I'm sorry. But it looked like he did. 14, 14, 11, 10, 16, 16. He's never really over that 15, 16-minute mark. Is that all he's capable of? Or right now, can he give us 25?
I think he can, and to me, that's the biggest question mark, with some of the coaching decisions that's going on. You look at a guy like Matisse Thybulle, yes, he's a rookie. Rookies do make mistakes, but I forget what the number was, but the Sixers were extremely successful when Matisse Thybulle played like 20 or more minutes in the game. And when he was in the starting lineup, they had a very good record. So, you look at him, and I get it. Brett, we're always talking about the team needs shooting. You have guys like Alec Burks You have a guy like Furkan Korkmaz. But to me, Matisse Thybulle brings something on the defensive end that the Sixers don't have. And if you look at, I know the Sixers made the game close, but the Sixers had total momentum of the last game that they played. They take Matisse out, and the Clippers go on a 24-5 run. So to me, 16 minutes, all this stuff sounds good for a rookie. But I think when you look at the deficiencies that this team has on the defensive end, I think Matisse is a guy that needs to play more minutes, and you have to live with the mistakes he's going to make.
Mike Scott, you mentioned as well, as potentially starting tonight against the Lakers, and he's had an interesting season, Keith. I would say overall a disappointment, definitely for his standards. With Robinson struggling, he hasn't made a three yet, in Philly, which is absolutely insane. But how do you see that position really playing out between Mike Scott? Is he going to get more minutes as a stretch 4 or 5 with a smaller lineup? Robinson, Burks, how does that work out?
I think it's going to be tough because, when you look at the Sixers lineup, the Sixers are saying that they want to play 9 players, right, in their rotation. And you have to assume, let's just say if we go with the starting lineup we talked about where Shake Milton becomes the 5th starter, right? So right then and there, that's Al Horford, there's Furkan Korkmaz, and then there's, there's Furkan Korkmaz, and there's Alec Burks. So Mike Scott becomes a guy, is he like a situational starter depending on the team, or the Sixers just going to take him out of rotation? What about Matisse Thybulle? Now, again, I'm a big proponent of Matisse Thybulle, but that's a decision that Brett Brown has to make, a tough one.
Yeah.
So, Mike, if you think about it, with Embiid back, you have a guy like Simmons who can play the 4. You have a guy like Tobias Harris who can play the 3 and the 4. Do the Sixers feel like we don't need Mike Scott? You understand?
Yeah.
So to me, it's going to be a situational thing, and it's a tough decision for Brett Brown to make because, you have to assume that 3 of those spots are going to go to Al Horford, Furkan, and Burks.
Keith Pompey with the Sixers in L.A. At Pompey on Sixers on Twitter for updates from the West Coast trip. When it's funny because Brett came out the other night and said, I told Shake Milton, you are not in the rotation. So it seems that, he's trying to make it clear that he explained to all these guys their roles because that was being questioned. But he told Shake, you are not in the rotation. I would imagine that is not going to change. But my question goes to what will Al Horford's role in the rotation be when this all kind of materializes? Because he was out of the lineup, then he was back in the lineup because Joel is out. What happens when Joel comes back? His name was mentioned that they might try to trade him in the offseason. He seems to be a very weird piece down the stretch here.
I think if Joel comes back before Ben Simmons comes back or whatever, I think Al, you'll continue to ride with Al in the starting lineup. I think that if both of them are back, depending on if they could correct the spacing to correct that with 21 games left, I kind of think that Al's going to be better suited coming off the bench. Now, that doesn't mean that Al won't play a lot of minutes, that he won't play like starter-type minutes, and you'll see certain, lineups with him on the floor with Embiid and Simmons. But I kind of think that, to get them going, they're looking at it like Al could be a better fit for them coming off the bench when those 2 guys are there. It's a way of, let's try to, get this thing started with better spacing. And in a way to get out of rhythm. When he's in there, he doesn't have to compete with space with Embiid. It's not going to be clogged up. Now, again, if Simmons not there, if you notice when Al was in the starting lineup for those 2 games, with when Embiid played or that game when Embiid played, it was one of those things that they didn't have those space issues. So more so than just Embiid, I think when you have the 3 of them, Simmons, Embiid, and Horford, is where you really have the spacing problems because they're all, let's face it, they're all in the paint and they're all like attracting attention.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I hope we see a good Harris tonight. I like the way he's been aggressive since the Cleveland game the last couple of nights. That's the kind of guy that they need. Keith Pompey, couple quickies left for Keith here. I know we're supposed to get updates on Simmons and Joel soon here. Do you have a feeling that that either one of them is close to returning? I mean, I feel like Ben might be out for a considerable amount of time. Joel feels closer, but do you feel any different than that?
I agree with you. I think Joel's going to be closer. The thing about Joel, when you have a sprain, typically a shoulder sprain, typically it's like if a grade 1 is like a 7-10. The Sixers said that, he'll be evaluated this week. Yesterday, or was it 2 days ago, Brett Brown said it's unlikely that he will play in this road trip. But, the way that they're talking as if like, Joel is, not exactly right around the corner, but they expect him back soon.
Yeah.
In regards to Simmons, I think it's going to be a while. And, when you have a back issue, you have to be 100% careful with that thing. You have to be careful. But in regards to Embiid, it's kind of like you get the gist that he'll be back, soon.
Hey, Keith, I know you did the Locked On with Kai Carlin, who was an intern here for me a major while ago. I can't believe how old that guy's getting all of a sudden. I feel old all of a sudden. But he tweeted out an interesting question because the Sixers are in the 6th spot now. If you're in the 6th spot, you play Boston right now. Do you like a matchup with Boston or Miami better?
I don't like that matchup with Boston. I mean, just because, the thing with Boston, and I know it sounds great, the thing with Boston is their coach scares me. And you look at Jason Tatum right now, Jason Tatum is the Eastern Conference, like, player of the month. He was averaging 30 points in the month of February. So the way I'm looking at it is this Boston team traditionally gets better as the season goes along. I know last year was crazy with Kyrie, but when you look at it, think about it. Each season, if Boston was one of those teams that we kept saying, "Oh my God, look at them, they're struggling, they're not doing well," and as the season progressed, everything start coming together. I think that they would be a tough out for the Sixers in the first round. I also think that Miami would be tough. But the thing about Miami, if you look at it, they came off a pretty good win the other night, but they've been struggling a little bit. So I feel like if the Sixers somehow can get that 4th seed and you see Miami at number 5, I think that the Sixers could probably win a first-round series against them. But I don't like their chances if they don't get the 4th seed of going and, playing one of these teams on the road. I just don't like it in the 7-game series right now.
He's Keith Pompey. Pompey on Sixers. He's in L.A. By the way, what seed in the NIT will Pitt be?
I don't know, but I know we'll be way better than West Virginia.
Enjoy the rest of L.A., Sacramento, and San Francisco, pal.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on the show, fellas.
Yeah, man. Keith Pompey, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. He's a nice Pitt guy. They're second to last in the ACC.